evening. Welcome to everyone who's here in person and to those online. I'm going to just go over what our process is tonight, and we'll do some introductions, and then we'll go through the sequence of our agenda. So I want to thank you all for being here. This is an opportunity to really do a Q&A and understand any question and provide you any answers you have or questions you have at Green, and particularly Green Simpsonville. My name is Tom Cronin. I'm the executive director here at Green. I'm going to introduce the team that's with us tonight. We're going to have a brief PowerPoint presentation, and then to ensure that everyone who's listening online gets to hear their questions being answered, those questions will be given. We'll have a conversation after that. Every question that was submitted ahead of time will be answered together as hybrid. And then when that gets shut down, then we can have a Q&A just with the people who are here in person. So first and foremost, let me introduce Mr. Jeff Long. He's our coordinator of safety and security here at Green.
Hi. For those that don't know who I am, I'm the safety coordinator. Just got brought on last April and came from Greenville PD. You may or may not see me. I try to do most of my work behind the scenes, but my biggest thing is I dedicated my second career to your children, to make sure your children are safe. And it's not a perfect process, but I spend every day checking schools, working with the administrators, working with local resources to make sure your children are safe. And so thank y'all for coming out tonight. You want me to go ahead and just speak real quick, or you want me to?
Sure.
So real quick, I'm kind of, I think in one of the former other meetings, I kind of just act as a mediator a little bit. I know there's a lot of questions, so just in respect for all the parents that are here, if you have a question, and it's a good question, and he's trying to explain or trying to answer the question, if you go, oh yeah, I got a follow-up to that, just hold that, make a note, just hold the question. We just want to make sure we go one at a time, because a lot of times it's hard to gather thoughts when you got 2 or 3 questions coming up. So just enjoy the night, have good questions, and Mr. Cronin will have good answers for you, and we'll have a good night. And so thank y'all for giving me a minute to speak.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Next is Mr. Bobby Rollins. He's our director of operations. He's going to introduce himself and tell you really his why he does what he does.
Thank you. I've got to say this a few times now. I can say it tonight and tomorrow night too. It is an honor and a pleasure to be able to work throughout the state with each of our administrators and staff members at each of the school, and get to meet a lot of you along the way as well as students. I always say I get to do this, and I indirectly impact your students and your children by directly impacting the adults that I work with.
Thank you, Bobby. Next, obviously, you know Maria Werner. You want to introduce yourself again and tell them your why?
Sure. Hi,
You want to
everyone.
come over here? So
Sure, yeah. Hi, people on virtual. Hi, everybody. I'm Maria Werner. I am the principal here at Green Charter Simpsonville. From a why, I feel like most have probably heard this. I was the kind of educator or kiddo that taught their stuffed animals. I always wanted to be an educator. Quickly into my teaching experience, I realized I was the weirdo that liked the staff meetings and loved to collaborate with other educators and help them be their best selves. So I started down an administration path. I was in Greenville County Schools, the traditional setting, here locally for some time before stepping away from that, and didn't really think that there would ever be the opportunity like Green came about to be. My family moved to Greenville, Simpsonville area specifically in 2001 when I was still in grade school. I'm a product of Greenville County Schools. I'm a proud product, but I do understand where there were deficits in my education, and now I have children of my own, and there was no choice for my parents when I was growing up, and there still wasn't when I was back in adulthood as far as public school choice in the Simpsonville area. So put my name in the hat when I found out that the Green Network was expanding, and it came to fruition. Mr. Cronin saw in me that I would be capable. I had only been an assistant principal. I had not been a principal before, so to take on the task of a founding principal was daunting, but also really exciting, and was always my dream. So I am gracious that he saw that in me and chose me, selected me as this campus's school leader. And if you know me, you know that I have pretty much put every bit of myself into this project for the last 2.5 years. I came on in October of 2023. I don't even know if that math is right. Every year seems like it's, yep. So, but I love what I do, and I love being around the kids. That's where my heart is in a place where I'm interacting with children every day and shaping and growing them. And my door's always open, so I hope that if we haven't had an opportunity to chit chat, I welcome it, and I'm just happy you're here, and I'm happy you're a stakeholder with us. So I'm grateful for all of you. Thanks.
Thanks. Additionally, part of Green is having an elected board member, so I'll ask Josh Alvin to come on up and introduce himself and tell you his why.
Hello everyone, Josh Alvin. If you do not know, I'm our school board rep. I've been on the board for 1.5 years now. I'm also a parent. I have 3 children that go here, and they love it. They love their teachers. I guess my why, I chose to be on the board. I was an assistant principal in Greenwood County along with Maria. So talking with her, it just was something that I thought I could help with, having an educational background to join the board, and and that's kind of my why, just to help the school, to help the staff, because I want my kids to succeed as well. My wife and I did not want our kids in the public school system. We just saw too many holes and things going on there. So we chose Green, partially because of class sizes, and my kids were going to middle school, and I used to teach middle school. So having 28 and 32 kids in a class, it just was too much, and you couldn't get to every kid. So that's why we're here.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Before we get into the PowerPoint, the brief PowerPoint, I've truncated a little bit to really focus on 3 key topics in it, but I will go through that shortly. But I just want to tell you a little bit about my arrival to Green. I inherited a school system that had some significant challenges and some significant obstacles. And really, this school is truly the fulfillment of a vision and an idea that we developed when I first arrived. Most of it is a culmination of over 35 years of experience, kind of trying to create personalized learning environments where there is a culture of care, there are personal mission statements, there's a way that kids can identify and see themselves in the school, and to really provide voice and choice to teach kids how to kind of manage their free will, really. That's what we have to do as parents, right? Teach them how to self-govern. So for me, this school is particularly special because all the other schools before this, including the new high school that we put up, was already part of an upper campus that was half from the old campus and half new, and there were a lot of kind of things to remedy. So for me, this is a particularly special campus. Most of the other campuses are jealous of the facility and the space, the size of the classrooms, the pleasantries of this campus, but we did it for significantly less, and I think this campus is the fulfillment of those big ideas, and it was wonderful to give Maria the freedom to bring in a high-quality staff and really communicate that to the community about what we're about and what we're going to become. So the staff here had a challenge in that they moved twice, right? They were a new school at the old high school, and then they were a new school in January, and now they double in size. They're another new school this year. Next year, we're just going to move those 7th graders up, and it kind of will be a little more predictable, more what we're used to. But that was a challenge, and it's been remarkable to see the incredible support for what we've done over here without really taking away from the other community schools we have. Greenville as a whole, I can get into this in the PowerPoint, but let me just finish with this. When I arrived, Green was going to fail. There were 20 seniors. There was no program. It was basically tutoring. And we had a $50 million bond. And if we didn't find a way to create a pipeline where we have K-5 serving a middle school coming up to the high school, it wasn't going to work. A comprehensive high school requires enough kids to be personalized and connected, or small enough so people feel connected, but large enough that we can have a comprehensive set of offerings at the high school level. So part of it was trying to get to a place where we can get that high school up between 600 and 700 kids. It can handle 8, but the goal was to have it small enough, because what Josh said is true. In county schools, the campuses of these high schools and middle schools are 600-700 per grade. And we want schools smaller than that, not just grades small. So I just wanted to share with you, the vision we had for this school and the effort that went into, probably by the spring of 2022, we had already worked with developing a change in our charters and an application for this charter in Taylor's. When this was big enough, we forewent, I guess, the Taylor's charter. So briefly, let me just run you through the PowerPoint, and then we'll answer the questions that were provided earlier. So Maria, have they been handed out? Could you hand those out now? I hope we have enough for everyone. So again, let me just thank you all. This campus is pretty special, and the support for this campus is attributed to all of you, and the quality teaching that goes on, the high nurturance that occurs here. Everything about Green is about high nurturance and high aspirations. That's what we talk about all the time. Anybody in here have more than one child at home? Okay. So you have more than one set of goals, don't you? And I don't think it's appropriate that a school system should have 600-700 kids in a school and have one goal, one test score, something like that. So we try to think like parents about keeping it personalized and letting kids find their motivation to learn. So again, the promise of Green has always been voice and choice, self-governance, self-management, identity development, because that's how you build curiosity and motivation to learn. So that's always what Green is about, the promise of voice and choice. I'm going to focus only on 3 key parts of the PowerPoint. The first one is the Green Chart School organization. This right here is, put simply, a visual representation of our bylaws. I've always been a public education servant. I've always worked in the public sector. I always believe that the accountability that can happen between community and schools is what makes a community richer and fuller. So when I was interviewing for this job, when I read the bylaws, this is what the bylaws, sorry, behind the way. One more.
Over one more?
One more that way. So basically, the beauty of Green is just this. The families and staff are our voters. They determine every campus gets a representative on the statewide executive board. So all of those people are our voters, and all of those people then serve our customers. They're the same people. Many of our staff have kids here. So when I was coming here, I loved the idea that there was this almost closed circle accountability, that we're all going to work together toward a solution that works. And the more, I always laugh when I hear from a principal, they have 3 kids and they're coming to our school. Great, that's what we want. We want that sense of accountability, that sense of dedication. So if you understand our structure, these voters determine our board, which hires the executive director, and these currently these 6 directors are the same 6 directors that we had when I first arrived. We had less than 1,800 kids. We're almost 3,000 now. It's a very expandable structure, so we can continue to serve and grow, and without adding, any upper management. It's really just These are the areas that exist in the school system. So we keep it very simple, very traditional. And all of these work closely together to serve our families and students. On the next page, I'm not going to spend time on it, but there is the actual organizational chart that shows how we're structured. Maria, how do I do this?
Just swipe like you do on anything.
That?
Kinda gotta put some elbow grease in it. There you go.
Okay, that's not right. What happened here?
Where they go to now, I can't see.
All right, well, you have it in front of you. Melissa must have sent you the one before we got it ready.
Oh.
So just go to the next one. Everyone, she has it online for people online. And what you have in front of you is probably the most critical understanding about green. In September, or in the spring of 2021, before I arrived, there was a new board, new bylaws, new board put in place. And at that time, the board secured a $50 million bond. With that, they bought four campuses. Bought 4 campuses. And one of them is a mile from here, our high school. $17 million, that $50 million was set aside to buy that building and upfit that building. So when I arrived, I knew the thing we had the challenge we faced was if we didn't have enough kids in that building, it wasn't going to be sustainable. If $17 million is on one building, that meant that we had to have 500 or 600 kids in the building. So with only 21 seniors and only 100 kids at the high school level, I knew that we had to change the configuration in Greenville. We took 6th grade out of Pelham Road exit or school. We made the upper campus 6 through 8, and we made this the high school. So and then we pitched the district for 2 possible charters. We were going to do a K-5 Taylors and a K-8 in Simpsonville. When this building was secured and we had such a large quality building, we gave up the Taylor's charter, and that's why we haven't grown any more than what we did here. It's sufficient to fulfill, again, highly personalized, highly supportive, small, personalized school system just in the Greenville area. But that meant that all the buildings that were purchased with that and all the charters were part of one obligated group. And that included the other charters that got developed afterwards. Even Spartanburg, even though they were leasing at the time, they were part of the obligated group. So part of the first thing we did when we got here was really develop an identity for green called Green for All for Green. Because it was so clear that there wasn't a connection between campuses. There was a sense of we're only here, they're there, we could close that one, we could close that one. And it really wasn't, it was like that till that bond got created, but once it got created, everyone was connected. If you think about if anyone or yourself or you know someone that's gone through a divorce, you're still both responsible for the mortgage. So even if we were to forego a charter, we still have the responsibility of the bond. So the bond was really a smart business decision because it was purchased right before rates went up. So we got a longer term, a lower rate, and even got it at a premium. We got $52.5 million, but only have to pay back $50. So the great part is, just like if you bought a house, the first year you're in your new house, the mortgage feels high, right? You just bought it. It's like I was renting and I didn't realize how expensive this would be. But 5 years down the road, you feel more comfortable with the mortgage payment because it's a flat rate. So at this point, we're at a place where our overhead across our bonds, including the new one we got purchased Spartanburg for, is still under what you call industry standard of about 20%. We're about 18 or 19% facility costs. So as much as this was a challenge when I arrived, we don't need to grow anymore. We can figure out how we can support having a 9 through 12 in Midlands and Low Country. We're already busing kids from Spartanburg to our high school, but we don't need to be expanding, but we needed to then. So there was a pedal to the metal approach to ensure that we could be viable long term. And quite honestly, the success of this school has given a great deal of promise to the whole network because it has been so successful and there's been such a high demand for what we're doing here. But I just wanted people to understand we have a pretty highly talented and well-respected group working on the finance side, including Baird, which if you've heard, they're one of the top people in the bond industry. They manage our bonds for us and helped us secure our Spartanburg bond as well. So we can answer some of those questions even later, right, Bobby? All right. The next couple pages I'm gonna pass over. You're welcome to look at those. They are the two components that come out of the United Nations, the 17 sustainability goals and the 5 inner development goals. These were developed in about 2015-16 about how we can kind of better conserve, take care of our planet, be more sustainable. Renewable energy, I would say, is probably the most significant thing we need to understand in the next 50 years. So for me, it was pretty exciting to come here and see the focus on such a high ideal. So those became our 2 guiding principles, which turned into what we call our portrait of a green learner. And really it is, as we talk about high nurturance and high aspirations, that's what this is. This is about all the things that happen in the soft skills and the interpersonal stuff, and then this is the technical skills of the sustainability goals. Part of the UN's effort was identifying what needed to happen, wasn't going to change anything until we changed people's mindset. So that's what we took as guideposts for our portrait of a green learner. Finally, I'll just close with a couple comments. So in your packet is this. This is the first visual we created. There's a great book, How to Think Like Einstein, and it says, always create a visual representation of a complex idea. What we were trying to do is be more of a distributive leadership model where we gave mastery, autonomy, and purpose across, if you know the research of Daniel Pink, he talks about that. The book Drive, To Sell is Human, all of those tie back to how you raise human performance. So what we did is really acknowledge that what we were trying to do is create an effort, a collective effort towards student voice and choice. So we can help our kids develop a better identity, better self-advocacy, and better skills by directing all our efforts from state law to our district, to our board, to central office, site flexibility, and then teacher autonomy. This also speaks to something that we try very hard to accomplish. It's a very hard thing to do, but we try to have what we call a parallel process. We try to treat everyone the way we want everyone to treat our students. So we call it the parallel process, and that's what this speaks to as well. So this was our first way to express the aspirations of our approach, and that really hasn't changed since I've been hard at work at it. The last couple pages are the 4 goals within the strategic plan that, again, won't change. The 4 C's of customer satisfaction, capacity development, continuous improvement, and capital. So those are that's the PowerPoint, really to just help everyone understand the structure of green, how we go about our decision making, how we go about our thinking, and I think that's it. Again, as part of this process is to give people online the ability to submit questions, have those questions responded to. So we're going to have Bobby read those. But before we get on that, Bobby, I just want to, hold on a second. I just want to acknowledge something. It was very difficult in November and early December to make the hard decisions of how to do a reduction in force. These are not easy decisions. They're very difficult decisions. They're sober decisions, but they had to be made. We had to make sure in a school budget, everything rests on an annualized basis. You and your home can decide to put in a roof and recover over the next year or so. In public education, we have to have an annual audit, and every year has to be able to stand on its own. And there are covenants within those bonds that we must meet. So as Copper was advising us, they said we needed to make some adjustments because we fell short in enrollment. because this fiscal year had to land on its own. And when I got here, we did so much to ensure that 24-25 would land okay. And last year was very challenging. As you know, we had to put a lot into this building, some of it unanticipated. To pull this off and to get it out, we lost ESSER funds last year. We had a significant school opening that we had to make happen, and that required a great deal of cash drain. So we landed last year, the fiscal year, with appropriate bond covenants met and appropriate cash on hand. Those are the two most important things in our structure financially. So at the end of October, like we got to make some changes. We were struggling to meet that enrollment target we had set. And I just want everyone to hear loud and clear how difficult it was. We made significant cuts at central office. We gave each principal, some principals, we gave some flexibility as to make choices. Here we were able to work with Marie and say, what can we do? There were some suggestions we had, and we gave Maria and Dawn work together on what would make sense here. Some schools we couldn't. I was making a leadership change. But I want everyone to hear loud and clear, we never cut any cafeteria workers. We never kept anyone from getting unemployment insurance. We offered to provide letters of support. It's a difficult thing. From time to time, businesses have to make reductions in force and layoffs. It was very hard. And obviously, it created a lot of fear and concerns over our stability long term, but I assure you that it was sober and difficult to do. So I just wanted to at least stress that, because that's, I know, what was difficult, especially here and well, at every school. So go ahead, Bob.
Okay.
You want to come over here so the online can see you?
Yeah, maybe close enough so you can step in and out too. All right, given the fact that our student to teacher ratio is once again rising, this time to 28-1, how many more administrators and support staff will be added to make the excessive load bearable? How is enrollment funded? Well, we can go to that one next. Do you want to respond to the 28-1?
I don't know where, there's never been a 28 at Green since I've been here. For the last 2 years, when we've put out offers, we've been 22, 23, knowing we might lose a couple. That's always been the case. We wrote the charter. The charter was 20 per class, but that wasn't a ceiling. It was just an approximation. There's no limit from the state. Before my first year here, there was a proviso on how many kids you could have. There were limits. Those were lifted the second year. There's never been 28 kids in a classroom here, so I know that that's not accurate. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
You said 22, and that's where I feel like we are pretty consistently going to be, and I think 22 is.
And that's, I'll just say this. This isn't written in stone. There are times when we've had parents say, we want to move over here, or we've had people come from one of our other schools downstate. We have gone to, I think we went to one classroom of 23 once because we had to do that, but it is not written in stone. We have to have the latitude sometimes to go a nudge over that. But we're never going to be like 26, 28 like you'll find, or 30, as Josh was experiencing in a county school.
It is written in our charter, which is kind of like.
This is not a time for questions.
That wasn't a question.
I understand.
All right, number 2. How is enrollment funding allocated to individual schools within the network? Specifically, what portion of per student enrollment funding is distributed directly to each school versus retained at the network? Publicly available documents do not clearly indicate whether a defined percentage is allocated back to the respective schools.
Mm-hmm. So obviously there's a collective bond. There's a staffing pattern at each school. We have a staffing pattern across the network. There are different expenses that happen. We've had places where we've had capital expenses at one school that need to happen. Last year, we lost all the skylights at the elementary school. We had to pay for that. Those are things that are going to happen. That's the great part about the structure of Green, It isn't all one single entity. They all have to be audited that way. All of our charters get audited individually, and then we have a collective audit for the whole network. So that's how it has to function. That's how the structure of our finances. And there are times where a challenge at one campus is supported by another. In this case, the 7 or 8 years, 9 years that happened at Green prior to this school going up, it was an advantage for Green Simpsonville because the reserve fund that was built over that time was able to be used to open this school. So it is a shared partnership that we help one another because we're one large entity.
I'm so sorry if I missed it because I was walking in.
We're just so you know, we're trying to handle the hybrid questions, and then we can have a big conversation together.
Okay. I just wasn't sure when it was questioned because that was my question, so I just didn't know.
Some people submitted questions, and we want to make sure those are answered first, and then we can stick around and talk.
Okay.
Once we get them off.
Okay.
All right, this is I'm gonna call this the big group of custodial questions. So I'm gonna try to kind of lump it all into one big question because they're very similar in how they ask. Why is custodial support not available throughout the entire school day? Staff members are being asked to clean vomit and feces without proper equipment while also managing classrooms of 20+ students. Additionally, many teachers are spending 30 to 40 minutes before and after school cleaning their classrooms, adding to burnout and impacting our ability to focus on teaching. How do you plan to address these issues to ensure a safe and healthy environment for both staff and students?
Well, why I mentioned at the beginning, we never cut any cafeteria staff because I know that was a challenge when right before break last May, I'll start from there. Last May we did a bid process to bid out our custodial services. The previous vendor that was here and in all of our schools did not win 3 of the schools or 4 of the schools. So we had citywide now in other schools. There was a cash shortfall in the fall because we were still getting paid. I don't want to get into this completely, but very plain and simply, we are paid on what our enrollment was in the spring for the fall. So we had 300 more kids and we were still getting paid on that amount, and yet we had the expenses of 300 more kids. So there was a cash shortfall that we were just working with Osheries to deal with that, which we're here. We had made an arrangement, and out of complete surprise, she pulled her plea bill out of 3 of the schools. Unfortunately, at this school, if I'm getting anything wrong, let me know, but at this school, we were also using a sub from Osheries in the cafeteria, and that's why I think the perception here was that we canned a cafeteria worker, and we hadn't. So it took about 3 days to finally get citywide in, and they're now providing services. Or 3 days to get the contract with them, and they started the next week. I think it was a Monday or Tuesday that they walked off, and by Monday we were under agreement with citywide. So yes, I am grateful that people chipped in and helped for a solid week to deal with the challenge of them walking off. But as far as the services, we just started those. We're a couple months in. Maria has the contact at Citywide and is working with them. As we determine whether services are adequate or not, we're working on that, but we just entered the new contract right before the holiday, and that's where we are. We've made a lot of progress. They're a good cleaning service. They've been great in the other campuses. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
I have the site manager's contact information that I provide feedback regularly on where there have been pitfalls and
What about the perception that we're asking people to clean up vomit?
But our staff, we have wonderful staff members that see a need and don't hesitate. I do want to clarify that nobody's ever been asked or told they must clean up any messes. Now, if they have seen that we did not have the personnel readily available, have they chipped in? I've seen it, so have I. I've mopped these floors when we didn't have a custodial staff and missed our staff.
Maria, come on, like, I'm gonna speak on.
This is not the time for.
This isn't a question. You cannot say that when you have this many staff members.
Say what?
Okay, hold on.
No, I would really like her to say what?
this, like I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of the mediator here, just to maintain just the conversations. After we get finished with this, the hybrid, that's when it's gonna be open dialogue. If I could just respectfully just ask everybody to hold any comments, statements, questions.
But what if he's not actually answering the question that
Yeah,
was
the
asked?
question was when would they restore it to a
Thank you.
full day of students being here?
Okay.
That question has been
All-
answered. That's an iterative process with Maria and us, and we'll determine whether those services need to be expanded. That's very
I'll ask
simply,
for them that
we're working
we
that
have these
through.
instances
So
where
no
someone's
custodian.
sick and we
Wait.
don't have a personnel there, that is troublesome, and I have communicated that, and I'd be happy to share that communication, but I really would like to know if, because I'm a very transparent and honest Amanda, so if I
I'm
was
not
not
saying you're
telling
not
the
honest,
truth.
but we're sugarcoating here. There have been teachers that had no option but to clean
I
it
think
up
what she's
because
saying
no
is
one
she
else.
has not asked me, like, she hasn't said, oh, you have to clean this up. We've had to clean it up because it's what we had to do to make our days run, but nobody's been said, oh, I'm not
But
gonna do
there
it.
have
you
been
have to."
no.
Okay, so I'm gonna politely interrupt. Let's get through these questions, and once the hybrid is over, then we can have the conversation. That's the purpose of, after the hybrid, is to have these open conversations. So if there is something that you've experienced, that'll be the
Glad to
time.
hear.
Let's
Glad to
get
hear.
through this hybrid, and then we can move forward.
And let me add to what Maria,
I
kind of
appreciate it. Thank y'all for.
kind of combining what Tom and Maria are saying. One of the things that they do is the principals give feedback to not only me, but Chase, as far as facilities goes. And one of the things that we're talking about is the actual time span, and I think that's what some of you are getting at right now, what Maria was getting at, as far as the time that they need to be with, inside the building, and that's part of what Tom is saying about the negotiation part of having that happen. So yes, the question was answered. That's where we are right now, because we got feedback from the principals, we got feedback from our facilities person, and that's what we're working on now, those negotiations.
It was a very difficult process because we had a company that walked out, and we had initially tried to engage them, and then we had to go to an outsource. It's a very difficult thing. I was not gonna be leveraged about that. I gave them opportunities to fulfill what they promised and what I had already committed to them, and then we went with another vendor. So it took, I think, about 5 days to go from walkout to this, and that's where we are right now. Bobby?
Okay. Two of those questions were very similar. And it does speak of the next statement, why does a school of nearly 700 students not have a full-time janitor? I'm hearing reports of teachers cleaning feces and throw up. Yeah, so why are teachers still having to participate in janitorial duties? One of the things I can say about that is, yes, our staffs are wonderful. And I think that's what Maria was getting at. You know, there are schools that people have jumped in at different times and helped out. When I was a principal, I did the same thing when we were shorthanded, because there's going to be days that you may have a janitor that doesn't show up because they're sick or something to that extent. I realize that there's a gap in time to where folks weren't here, but I can tell you, I know that I was very appreciative of my staff when they were able to jump in. I know Maria and the other principals are as well. It's just something that happens in schools. Now, do we want it happening on a daily basis? Absolutely not. And I get where that question's coming from. So that's the reason why I know it seems like it's taking time, but that's what happens when you negotiate and try and get the feedback from the principals on what time they're getting in here, what time they're having to leave, and then how long the night crews are here at night. When they're here during the day is when you need the coverage stuff. You need the coverage. So that's what we're working on the timing of that. We have, we're switching gears here a little bit. We have a wonderful, gifted, and talented class. However, outside of that 1 hour, this thing keeps going off. Hold on. Outside of that 1 hour per week that doesn't start until spring second grade, what are you doing to ensure that students testing above grade level are being challenged in the classroom from kindergarten up? Can I start with kindergarten and then turn it over to Maria?
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I got to do, and this was Simpsonville's inception. This was that first green light. Your kindergarten teachers came up to me and they were just, some of them almost in tears, because one of the things that I think is very important, especially in kindergarten and first grade and second grade elementary school, period, is hands-on learning, soft skills learning. It's not all about ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, especially in those kindergarten classrooms. So I asked And what I'll be doing this next semester, as soon as I can get out and about, is going to kindergarten classrooms especially, and I want to see centers in those classrooms. I want to see kids interacting with each other. I don't want to see them sitting on the carpet for, 25, 30 minutes at a time, which I don't see happening here. And just really becoming involved. And maybe Maria can speak a little bit on some things that they have planned out and the GT certifications that your teachers, I think a good many of them have gone for some of the courses. Is that right?
We have several GT endorsed teachers, and one of the things that was called Meet Green was the sharing of that we have goals to get all of our teachers to provide that so that they are all endorsed in the gifted and talented, because a lot of those approaches instructional practices are just best for kids, all kids. If you have had the opportunity to attend any of our SIC meetings this year that we have started, we have recognized through our data systems that we have lots of achievement levels, and a one-size-fits-all model does not work. Another reason why this beautiful place is what I aspire to be a part of was so that it wasn't a one-size-fits-all model. And we were not just focusing on the kids that were on the cusp of passing the state assessment, but we were seeing each child for where they are and moving them forward. So we are looking into that regularly and brainstorming around how do we stretch them? How do we challenge them? A lot of times challenging instruction or challenging experiences in the classroom don't necessarily mean that it's academic levels above their current grade level. A lot of times that can mean challenging them in the whole child development. I have seen students that are academically very, very gifted, and they were needed to learn to interact with same age peers, and those center groups were what was going to challenge them and help develop them. And so I encourage our teachers to be in regular communication with families and to know our kids as individuals, and we look at that. I'm very drawn to that kind of research about reaching each kid where they are. Again, we're in our second year of operation, and learning our community and meeting their needs is my top priority, and growing your kiddos.
If you missed it, we are supporting our teachers getting a GT endorsement, cross endorsement. It's good practices. Those instructional practices work with every kid, like Maria had said. So that's a system-wide aspiration as well.
When is the rest of Simpsonville's furniture arriving? We are still missing teacher tables, desks, and chairs.
To my knowledge, there is a table within our order that did not receive the legs, and we have several damaged pieces from the original order that have gotten messed up, and they are the warranties on them for our furniture company. They are en route to being replaced, and the legs are coming, but it was a one tabletop, so I'm not aware of additional purchased furniture that has not arrived. One of the things we did when I got here, Low Country had just opened a few weeks after I got there, and there were nuts and bolts all over the hallways. They delivered furniture in boxes and asked a bunch of staff to put them together, and they were falling apart. Part of what you see here is furniture that has a lifetime warranty from a company that's on state bid. So we paid more for the furniture, but we also don't have to keep buying it. So the furniture around here is of very high quality through Meteor, and we wanted to buy it once and do it right. So we were unsure where that question came from, but I hope you look around. I mean, even some of the common areas, they're really cool spaces that we developed.
Foreign language question. Foreign language is best learned at the youngest age possible. If we're all one green, then why are some related arts offered at certain elementary campuses but not others? When can Simpsonville K-5 expect to add Spanish-related arts? And when will the 6th through 8th grade get theirs back?
I'll handle that at the beginning, Maria, if you want. So part of what we've done at Green is last winter we created a scheduling rubric for the whole system. And it's difficult to have every campus be the same because some of them are 700 kids, some of them are 200, 300 kids. So what we try to do is make sure the core academics are consistent and similar. We're trying to narrow the variance around our best practices. But then we have, what you're getting at is some of the extracurricular or the exploratory, the specials that exist. And the bigger the school, the more choices you can have. So we've kind of worked with each site manager to figure out the best way to do that. And sometimes you just have a winner teacher that's really created a lot of interest in something and you kind of work with that. And here we tried to have a FLES program, but we got to figure out what that wheel will be in the future here as we add or raise the rising 8th graders. So that's a process that's ongoing right now, right? Because we have to determine the schedule to develop our staffing pattern. But that's all based on a scheduling rubric to create consistency and high quality instruction across the network. And obviously that's already going on here as a school of excellence. So I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, I want to have foreign language. I want to have all of the things. I would like to have theater. There's theater at the middle school. I would like to have all of the, if you reach out to at least our middle school staff, I'm constantly picking at them about what their maybe hidden talents are that we could have just as many options as possible for our kids to explore where their interests lie, and there is great value in foreign language as well as many other opportunities, and so I take what our staffing pattern is and follow.
Across the network, we try to give some flexibility to each site manager to hire their staff. Sometimes, for example, I'll tell a brief story. We had a small school. There was interest in Spanish being taught as the first language. Well, the top candidate wanted to do Italian and Spanish. It didn't seem to make sense, but that's what we wanted, to hire the best teacher in the group. So we offered some Italian, and to this day that she does sections of Spanish and sections of Italian and created a great deal of interest. They travel. So sometimes it's about finding that teacher that might want to explore something. And that's what we also talk about, voice and choice, give some opportunity. We have that going on at the high school. We find out what the teachers want. We survey the kids to see what electives they want, and we see if we can match those up. A motivated teacher creates motivated students. So we try to have that across how we hire quality staff.
Okay. HVAC. Why did leadership sign a lease for the Simpsonville campus without advice from an architect, engineer, or contractor who could have identified immediately that the HVAC system was not adequate? The $4 million bust on the cost of the project keeps being referenced as one of the major reasons for our financial issues, but this shouldn't have been a surprise if the process were done correctly from leadership and the board. So how did this happen? Who is being held accountable for this gross mismanagement? Where is the money coming from to cover this cost? How does this affect what is being provided to our kids? And I'll add this to it because it's part of it. Can you please provide copies of or show a slide with the paid invoices for the $4 million HVAC project at the Simpsonville campus?
Yeah, we don't have the slide for you. We have all the change orders. We had a project manager on that. We have an executive summary about what happened here. Basically, we're a charter school. We're a nonprofit. We signed a lease to get this space. We negotiated $60 a square foot of 72,000 square feet. We made a 10-year commitment. That was our charter. It was a wise lease to sign. In the lease, deep in the lease, is the idea of change of use. They were going to pay for all the HVAC, but change of use changed their responsibility to do that. I agree. It would be better the lesson learned is we got to not build out a school like this without checking that. But the problem is MEP drawings are about $300,000 to $400,000. So with their commitment to cover the HVAC, we thought it would be fine. I talked to the attorneys about it who missed this, and it really, even the commercial realtor that works with us, is a difficult thing to anticipate every possible thing. OSF wouldn't come out and look at it until we were official as a school. We couldn't really spend $300,000 to do MEP drawings if we didn't have a lease on the building. So we did the drawings after we signed the lease. We negotiated a great deal. And ultimately, as difficult as it was and somewhat unanticipated, it also still came in at the same price per square foot as we did the high school. You're still talking about a building this big at $94 a square foot. That can't be done. That can't be done. To give you a for instance, and I understand the frustration, it was frustrating for me. We were already in it. I knew if I didn't open, we were going to have a bond problem. So we had to keep pressing forward. But we did it. We landed last year with all those capital expenses. And I'll just say it this way. We have right now $61 million in bonds. We own 6 buildings for that, right? Spartanburg and the 5 that we already own, and this one's on lease. Do you guys know there was an elementary school built in Greenville County? You know about that one right behind Mahan? 750 kids, K6 or K8? 750 kids. $57 million. We have 61 for, I guess, all but 700. So 3 times the size right here. 3 times the size for about the same money. So what we've done here is do things that the Charter Act was designed to do. Not take 5 years to build a building. When Maria and myself, I'm just going to take a sidetrack on this one. We had to get a special exception to be in this park, this POA. And the town, even though the city of Malden, even though they had a school right down the street, especially, there was already an approved use in this area. They made us go through a special exception. And that's why we all had to be at the high school to begin. Because we had to get that special exception and we had to obviously do the HVAC. So what we were able to do, and I said this, the last question they asked when we had the hearing, they said, Mr. Cronin, you're going to take taxes out of the town of Malden by putting a nonprofit here. And they asked me if I had a comment on that. The lawyer for Malden said that. The chair asked me to step forward. I said yes. We're going to try to waive, and we just got it waived. It took us a year and a half. We got our taxes waived back to 2024. I said, yep, you're going to lose about $20,000 a month in taxes. And in 9 months, you're going to have a service. I said you pay about $15,000 per kid, maybe $18,000 per kid. And even if only 500 of them are here, you're going to get a $3 or $4 million service in 9 months right in your community at no additional tax dollars. So what charter schools are trying to do is do things quickly, efficiently, and innovatively. And that's what Green Simpsonville is. So yes, we had to spend extra money to keep this project rolling, unanticipated. With 3.6 or 3.5 already, I paid nothing, no rent. I got a 2-month waiver of the first 2 months of rent and no money up front. And they paid $60 of the $94 of the construction. So yes, it cost us a lot of money, but when you look around at what we got, a 73,000 square foot building is pretty amazing. In addition, we applied for a planning and implementation grant and got $900,000 to offset the furniture and technology that was put in this building. So a lot of things went into making this happen, a 3 or 4 year process to pull this off. And I wish I'd have known that answer. I wish I'd have known it before we started. But because we had the reserve, we felt we could still press on. So that's the biggest summary I can give about HVAC.
Okay. What is the zero tolerance rule for inappropriate use of language towards children of different ethnic backgrounds? How will this be handled on an administrative level so that it does not become complacent and swept under the rug?
I'm going to handle the beginning of this, and then I'd like you to step in. We don't defend bad behavior in anyone, and it is hard sometimes. I'll just say it bluntly. Some of the inappropriate and racially charged language that happens is difficult, and we need to address it. We need to address it as a teachable moment. It's still remarkable to me that there's no hate crime law in South Carolina, but we address it in our schools. Green has 40 countries represented at Green. We are a blind lottery, and we have people from all over the world at Green, and we need to be an appreciative and accepting environment. Administratively, generally across the network, if that's dealt with, it's dealt with the parents whose kid is being impacted, either who heard it or who said it. And that's who gets to find out what was done. And the person who had it said to them doesn't get to know what was done with the child. That's a violation of FERPA. So it is always an issue of trust. There has to be an understanding that we're trying to do the best we can to create a teachable moment. Just like you in your home, it's not always perfect. You know, you miss it a little bit. But what we always talk about is what you're doing reasonable. The key is to make sure everything's addressed. You don't have to do it perfectly aligned to your family would do it, but you need to feel like there's some progressive and teachable things that go on. Where it's a problem is when there's a pattern. God bless you. Or if there's even support at the family side of some of this. Those are the more difficult ones to navigate. But I just wanted to paint that general picture of how we approach it at Green. And I don't know if you want to address it in context here.
Sure, I can just piggyback why I love this school and this place so much. At the time that we had an incident and made all parties involved aware, what I've seen come to fruition is collaboration between parents and our staff members to make all of that be seamless in the building, and that they feel heard and a part of our efforts here. And so I know that there have been numerous meetings with administration and counseling with parents to discuss what does that content on and look like in our school building, the education of that, or we accept all, like Mr. Cronin said, we have 40 countries, 33 countries represented in our school, and it's really beautiful to watch that. And we just got done with Kindness Week and caring for others, the culture of care. It's built in and webbed into that. And if there are suggestions from our community, I keep my door open because I love that feedback.
Yeah, and I'll just address the first part of that. We're not a zero tolerance setting. Zero tolerance typically is zero judgment. It is critical to investigate everything that happens. If something happens for the first time one kid makes a mistake, that's different than a kid who's demonstrated a pattern. That's why bullying is something that's articulated in the law. It has to be repeated and ongoing. So zero tolerance is, there are some things like, weapons, things like that are zero tolerance, you remove them. But we approach all of these disciplinary things around three basic lenses: frequency, duration, and severity. There are some things kids do that just are nudgy. They're peeling apart something all day long, but it's not very severe, but it's so persistent. So we can do a more subtle thing. Some things aren't progressive. You just keep addressing it, but you don't escalate it. I had a high school once that it was high school kids on a college campus. They could smoke there. If a high school kid started smoking, we could address it, but at some point, 17, 18 years old, I'm not going to give them a 5-day, 10-day suspension for that. You're in a college setting. And the same goes for like peeling apart a pencil. There's a point at which you address it, have them clean it up, but you don't make it. There's things that happens developmentally. So when we talk about when something goes beyond the classroom, maybe beyond the principal, we try to talk about a consistent way to reflect on the conduct, the context, and what strategies, and is there a safety issue. We also have a BTAM team at every school, which is a behavioral threat assessment team, that if there's anything like that was to happen, that BTAM team gets together and figures out whether the kid's safe or not. So we do all those things at every campus.
And I can tell you, Jeff and I are usually in on those conversations or the follow-up conversations if it's something that severe. And I do want to stress to everyone, the privacy of the student in question is just that. Here's what I ask administrators to do. Follow up with a teacher, especially if there's a disciplinary action, because that teacher's, they're in the know. They need to know how to support the child when they come back to the classroom. especially if it's something that happened in that classroom. But I'm going to stress, it's not someone else's right to know what the outcome was of the consequence for that other student. And again, if it's a zero tolerance type thing like a weapon, yes, that's something that Jeff and I will be dealing with right away, because our administrators know. They know when to call if there's something like that they're dealing with. All right, next one. Another financial question. I'm concerned about the financial status of the school in general. I know that teachers were laid off. Our teachers were told they could no longer have substitutes, and our teachers' retirement benefits were stopped. This all seems extremely odd and very concerning, given that you have annual budgets that should cover you for a full school year. How did the miscalculation of funds get to the point that it was a surprise near the end of the first semester, leading to layoffs? What is the plan for this to be corrected so we as parents can have any certainty that our wonderful teachers and staff will be here next school year?
Yeah, again, like I shared at the beginning, it's a difficult situation. We had to adjust to a shortfall in enrollment. We're trying to delay it to see if we could get the enrollment up to that 45-day count. When we didn't meet that, we had to take some steps. As is typical at Green, in February, we make a personnel decision as far as compensation, and we're also going to be rolling out very shortly, when and how much the reinstatement of the retirement, because I don't think it's fair of us to ask the question of returning without those answers. So just like we have done every year, that emanates from the Personnel Committee, and that's a part of the budget development process that goes through finance. So I understand the challenge with it. From the start of getting here, I was worried about 24, 25, but we landed the plane, and now I think we're on solid ground. I still think that addressing these concerns and alleviating some of the fear and concerns that exist within our school communities is part of how we reinvigorate the model and the confidence in what we do, because I think at our schools, it's still great stuff going on, so that's part of what these meetings are about, to assure people that we're moving forward and the high quality, it's just a couple months ago, we were Greenville County's best charter schools, and we want to maintain that quality reputation. So we'll be doing what we always did. HR will push out the next year's salary scale shortly, and communication will happen about restoring the retirement fund. And at what amount?
Similar question, just a little bit added to it. Earlier board meetings indicated enrollment declines across other Green campuses. How does this impact Green's financial position in the next year?
Well, again, we're an obligated group, so we succeed together. Obviously, some of the concern last year happened when the principal was arrested in Midlands, and we ended up losing 30 or 40 kids within a week. I assure you the community down there is strong. They're recovering. They're coming back. I stand by my position on that. I can't get into it any further than what I've already shared with my public statements about that. But we're hopeful and excited for what's going on down there. And the same goes here, the same goes everywhere. We are one network. We are one entity. And that's why we have to take care of each other. So we're still one obligated group.
Okay, two special education questions. Is there a special education team? Yes. I can answer that, right? Yes. Yes, there's a special education team. My incoming kindergartner may need services, but I don't want to start him there if there's no special education team. You want to talk about your special ed team or special education team?
Yeah, we have experienced some turnover within our internal special education teaching staff this year. That was unforeseen, and we responded with putting it out to try to fill the positions. Our positions are all filled with certified special education teachers, and that population grew just as our entire population grew, and but I am very devoted to ensuring that we are always doing the legally binding, and I think sometimes we've overserved, and that has then looked like you've reduced services, but it's that our teachers are always going to be working with children rather than, and if they have the time, they go find a child to work with. And that's what I love about them.
Yeah, special education is a whole massive part of law. We have to follow it. We do follow it. If we're not following it, that's an appeal. Then we provide compensatory services. We do it like every other school district. The challenge we face, quite honestly, well, first let me say this. In our scheduling rubric, we talk about effectively supporting and planning for our most impacted kids first. If you do that well, then you can schedule the rest of the school. Often schools think about where they're going to put the flutes or the clarinets, and then special ed kids get plugged in after. We're trying to think about how to effectively support our most impacted kids first. Now, having said that, we're still a regular education setting, and the South Carolina law is silent on how to fund kids that are beyond the limited limits of a regular education setting. So we oftentimes have to deal with that, and sometimes, whether it's a safety issue, someone's maybe excessive behavior or something like that, we might put someone on homebound until we could figure out what's appropriate, or sometimes we have to go back to IEP and say, we don't have adequate services here. But the law is silent on that in South Carolina, which is complicated, because they treat us like an LEA and we're not. Greenville County has state funding, but they also have a local tax base. And they can always raise your millage anytime they want. We don't have that. We get this amount of money per kid. We get a little more if you're special needs or 504. But ultimately, we know that if you know one special ed kid, you know one special ed kid. The needs of one does not equal the needs of the other. So I will continue to protect the regular education setting that Green is and help our kids of varying learning abilities access what we offer. But if your needs are excessive and beyond the scale and scope of this setting, it becomes difficult to serve and fulfill the innovation that is Green Charter Schools. So I only paint the picture of that. This is not something, just like we won't get into personnel matters, we're not going to talk about individual kids. So the process is there. We have a great special services director and a whole team that supports that. Last piece on this. Everything about Green is a lottery. We are not an applicant pool. Green does not have an applicant pool. We don't go in and pick kids out of after assessing them. It's a completely blind lottery. So we get whoever the lottery picks. And that allows us to have this eclectic, welcoming community with state averages aligned with every other community. You look at some charter schools, they limit who they let access the school. And Green follows the law on that because public charters are supposed to be blind, and we're going to continue to do that.
You pretty much answered the next question. Not only, let's see, why have you allowed Green to be non-compliant with IEPs? Anytime there is non-compliancy, Tom just answered the questions. Compensatory services happen, and the students still receive their services. Special education teachers are hard to find in South Carolina. They really are.
I don't want to talk about one, but yeah. We have tried to, just like we talk about trying to get teachers to get a GT endorsement, we've also tried to get teachers to get a cross endorsement in special education. Anybody who has multiple certification is more valuable as a teacher. And there's always a difficulty finding. And in South Carolina, we can have 75% of our teachers can be certified and 25% cannot be, but none of them can be special education. We have to either hire a service or find somebody that's certified. It's a challenge.
This one I feel like we have covered, but I just want to say this: enrollment. What is the budgeted enrollment for Simpsonville next year? 906. Again, that's like the 28-to-1. I'm really not sure where that information is coming from. One of the things that Tom and I know Maria and our team, and we'll get to what the charter says in a little bit, because I do think that it's important to come back to that because there's an answer for that as well. But 906, I don't know where that number's coming from. I'm just going to put that out there.
We're trying to get about 22 per section,
yeah.
About 88 per grade, 9 grades. You know, it's going to be probably between 750 and 775 probably when we're all said and done.
Yeah.
The great part about this campus is the size of the classrooms. There's space, there's room. There are some of our schools we cannot put 22, 24 kids in a classroom because they're very tiny. So that's what our goal here is. We're going to budget a tight, low number. If we have a few over that, great. I'm also trying to get different school leaders to work together on recruitment, trying to get Angelica at the high school to work with Maria to keep that pipeline, keep that sense of a K-12 system here. We're trying to get our K-8 principals that are kind of in the remoter communities to work together on consistent strategies, and also get Fitz and Brian Whitehead to work together to keep that continuity campus to campus. We want people to come here, make it better because they're here, and stay with us. And that's what was exciting about this campus feeding into the high school. I mean, to have a community that you could have your kid with the same kids from kindergarten to 12th grade, a mile apart, creates a sense of community and a sense of belonging and a safer school community. So that's part of what this feeder was designed to do.
Similar question. When I was hired, I was told that there was a cap of 20 students per class. Can you explain why additional students are being placed in green Simpsonville classrooms to make up for low enrollment at other campuses? Some of our classrooms are not set up to hold more than 20 students, and this is impacting both management and students' education. How do you plan to address these challenges and ensure the quality of learning for all students?
I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
When I was hiring and when I was supposed to do that, if you've taken a tour with me, you heard the first couple sentences out of my mouth that there was a cap on enrollment and that we had this many seats, and that was what it would be to be about to. And at that time, I was not aware there could be wiggle room. Now I know there is. 22 is a solid section number, what our building or our classrooms can hold and handle, and that's great education.
Look, we can't blame Maria for any of that. The charter did read 720 kids. That's how it was submitted. But it wasn't a cap. It was just explaining how we would structure things. We've always kept our classrooms about 20 to 22 across the network. The middle schools tried to get up to 25 and they can't do it, and it doesn't make sense, and their classrooms are small. So it really has never gone over that 22, 23 anywhere across Green. There are some sections at the high school that are larger, and there's some sections that are 6 kids because it's a high level math or something. Every day for 2 years when we've done the blind lottery, all the time it was always 88 per grade here. That was always in the system.
Yes, it was.
So this is nothing different or new. I know it's been a misunderstanding, but it is still a public school. We only get a certain amount per child, and I still think we outdo the county schools significantly, both in enrollment and quality of educational experience. So that has never been any different. Sorry if that was something that got communicated, but it was always, every time we were accepting up to 22, and just backfilling if kids fell off that.
You kind of answered this, but I want you to answer for everybody. Why is the classroom size not 18 like it says in the annual report? That's an easy answer.
Well, that's an average class size across the whole network. There are some schools that just have, there's some schools that have 15, 16. If you get 30 kindergartners, you're not going to put 30 kindergartners in a room. So, we always try to make it a reasonable number. So, and then like I said about the high school, there's some small sections at the high school level. So that's just an average.
Okay. Another question about enrollment, but the same one, 928 total in the in the classrooms. I think you just answered that one. Yes, we're still under the traditional Greenville County schools that are our neighbors here. Next question, why is CO and ELT claiming that stakeholders are affecting enrollment with their negativity? Stakeholders and staff have presented concerns based on data and observable events. The lack of transparency and action taken to solve these known issues are affecting enrollment. Why is our network creating false comfort by not directly addressing concerns? At this time, I cannot confidently recommend new families to join Green or existing families to remain. Nothing feels safe, secure, and staff is operating in fear due to hearing a narrative that we are stronger than ever, when in reality we're experiencing the consequences of the operational negligence of leadership.
Wow. Let me just say this. Everything about Green is customer focused. We don't exist unless you choose us. I know that. We all know that. We talk about it all the time. If you're not happy, it's a problem. Just the reality about it. But at no time do we avoid remedying problems. The problems I was addressing was, the kind of excessiveness to some of the strategies that were used. I never have a problem talking like this and talking about what we're doing. I've been thinking about this profession for nearly 40 years. I love what we do in education. I love the approach we take. There are a lot of reasons we do what we do. And they're very much contrary to what a county school will do. A heavy focus on bubble kids, a heavy focus on pacing guides for teachers. 100% of the teachers here came back this year. That's because it's a good place to work. There are things that happen this year that are difficult, and I've acknowledged all of those. But we've tried to make sure that the decisions we make are for the long-term good of Green. I don't cut deals. I don't make special side deals that, just to keep someone quiet. We try to deal with people consistently and similarly, and really be responsive to concerns. I am sorry that so many people are feeling this way, and we're trying to do those things that restore confidence in what we're doing. We're always available to meet and talk, but we also, there has to be a mutuality that there's got to be the point is to gain information, to develop a shared understanding. And that's what we're trying to do. So I love what I do. I love what the board has allowed me to do since I've arrived. And I think this school, and I guess my frustration with some of this is I know how hard our leaders and teachers work. And sometimes with all the noise that's gone on, it's felt difficult for our leaders and our staff because they also feel attacked. And I just assure you that we're doing everything we can to put us on the same track we've started with. We had a blip, we've had to deal with that, but the message has been the message, the approach has been the approach, and we'll listen to anyone here wants an individual meeting, I'll be glad to talk about
Except with me.
Yep.
All right. What is Green doing to restore promised benefits to our staff members, and how are you ensuring that these benefits are not cut after they have signed contracts and they're recruited to Green? You've partially answered that. Yeah, it's coming.
Yep.
Soon. When will teachers be informed of the future salaries, any changes to retirement so they can make informed decisions?
We already addressed that'll be coming.
Some of these are an extended list, so I'm going to leave this on because some of them could be mixed in.
Okay.
Which, if that's okay with you. Let's see, will new teachers and staff be hired? Will new teachers and staff be hired when the problems have been overcome? I think that goes back to scheduling rubrics, working on the next year's budget. The principals started meeting this week. Maria hasn't had her meeting yet. Hers is next week with our financial team, going over their budgets and starting conversations of needs, not only for the remainder of the school year, but getting ready to start planning for next school year as well. So Maria's is next week, and we have several others next week.
On Monday, three meetings every Monday.
Yes, and those, what will happen from there is where we start talking about their staffing plans, and then they'll get with Dawn and myself on those. What plans does Green have to improve teacher retention for next year after the cutting of retirement matching and many other challenges this year? There are many who are looking for or planning to leave.
Yeah, again, it's the same.
I'm happy to go.
Go ahead.
I don't know how you improve from year 1 to year 2 being 100% of retention. So, but that I'm only speaking for our year 1 to year 2 with retention. Our teachers all did return from first year to second year. And I have surveyed our staff individually and asked them, reassured them that their responses in this could in no way impact their asking of being back or put their job on the line. It was strictly just for me to know where is your head at, and so I can wrap my head around where my head is at moving forward, always looking forward. And all of those responses were very, I told them they were confidential, but they were very, it made me very happy. I feel very good about our staff. So if that is not the actuality as this question is phrased, then I will continue to look deeper into building that relationship with the staff. But right now, what they've provided for me, I feel very good about.
It's, again, I talk about the parallel process. As parents, you choose green or not choose green. I want to earn your business. We all want to keep you here and keep you engaged. The same goes for the staff. We know we can't give all the benefits Greenville County gives, state retirement, the full state retirement, things like that. But we try to create a learning environment and a learning community among the adults that they feel professional respect, professional practices, time to collaborate. So we want people to choose to be with us. We're not going to strong arm anyone or leverage. We want people that want to do it this way and to stick around with us. Again, a motivated and enthusiastic teacher creates that in their kids.
Okay. When will our website have the ability to give our students and teachers access to Destiny from home in order to, for example, place books on hold, write online book reviews, and do research through online databases? I think that Dr. Kelsey Pennington was looking into that. Have you guys had any?
Get worked out.
I'm not sure if it was worked out, but I am year 2. I'm fortunate we have a library to begin with. I'm really excited. I love that we were able to have a library and continuous and growth is always what we're looking for.
That's an online tool that I think Dr. Pennington was pursuing to secure for all Greenville.
So more to come.
But we have to have a website to use it.
Yeah.
Why does Simpsonville not have proper exterior security cameras? This is a large safety concern for me. Cameras should have been installed before children ever came over to the campus. We have been at the Simpsonville building for 1 year now, and we still do not have something so basic as exterior security cameras. Frankly, I think 1 year is more than enough time to figure out how to install exterior cameras, and the ongoing lack of them shows how little the executive office cares for the safety of our children, especially when we don't have gates or fencing. Our children are playing in an open parking lot daily.
I'll address basically the iterative process we've gone through to keep raising the quality of security around here. When I arrived, there was no firewalls, there was no protections. My first month I was asked to expel a kid because he was looking at inappropriate things online. I'm like, do we have any protections to prevent that? They're like, no. I said, well, that's our fault. So we put a lot of things in place to put firewalls and other filters on Bark, and what's the other one? There's Bark and there's GoGuardian that allows anything that goes on those Chromebooks, we find out right away. So that's the first part. The other part is there was no badging that was going on. There was no sense of security. Some of our campuses, actually this is at least one building and contained. We have challenges at some of our sites. So last summer we tried to ensure that all of our campuses got refreshed exterior cameras. I know that's a problem here. When we're opening it, the landlord didn't want that to happen, but Jeff's working on that. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that any further.
Yeah, I can. So when I got brought on, the first thing I did is I just walked the campuses, and that was one of the things that I noticed at this campus is the exterior cameras, because the other schools have it. So I've since contacted our IT, because between IT and facilities, they're the ones who have the existing vendors, and they're the ones that get the quotes. And of course, when you have a large facility like this, you've got to map it out. You got to make sure there's wiring. So they are currently working on looking at that plan, looking at mapping out and seeing what was already done in the past, so we can get some adequate quotes.
The landlord's permission now to put them up?
As far as what IT told me, they finally came around and said that, yeah, that actually might be a positive for the building.
The last 2 summers, we've replaced exterior cameras at multiple schools to ensure that safety.
So once I got that information, that's when I was like, okay, we gotta get going. So we are moving on that already.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
There's a growing distrust with parents in the network. I'm afraid that with Green not handling these issues, the upcoming enrollment numbers will be missed, putting further financial strain on the organization, not to mention pending lawsuits. What's the contingency plan for potential missed enrollment numbers in 2026, 2027?
This is our challenge. We got to all work together. We all got to be ambassadors for Green. You got to love what you do. You got to love the way your kids go to school. I'm trustworthy. The directors are trustworthy. Our principals are trustworthy. Whether you decide to trust us or not, it's up to you. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to explain and provide some information for you. I love what we're doing. Our team has been together. The directors have been together. Kelsey's somewhat new, but all the other directors have been with me since the spring of 2022. Maria's principal been since the start, before the start. And we've had a great leadership team. So we're trying to really, sing from the same hymnal and dance together and do it right. But I can't look into a crystal ball, and there's no guarantees. I'm counting on us continuing to earn your business. We're not the county school. Go to the county school. The teachers, some of the county schools' approach is whether they have 28 kids or 21 kids, it doesn't matter. Well, here it matters. We have to keep you engaged and help kind of create that hypodermic affection. Get under your kid's skin a little bit and get them to see their future better than maybe they thought they could. That's our job, and that's your job as parents. And we're just glad to come alongside that. What I love about schools of choice is it puts us all on the same side. I worked in, we didn't call them county schools, but county schools. And sometimes this is what we do. I know Josh and Maria mentioned the difference. We're completely customer focused. So, we don't want to miss our enrollment. We're going to do a very conservative one. We don't ever want to live through having to do a reduction in force. It was painful. It's difficult for the staff affected. It's difficult for the school communities. So this is part of just earning your trust back and your kind of support for what we're doing. It doesn't help us when we're airing our dirty laundry and not talking like this. So that's the only point of my letter a few weeks ago, was just to remind us that we're in this together. Go ahead.
Why wasn't the $4 million Simpsonville HVAC unit brought to the board for a vote? And why aren't the financials publicly posted?
The financials are up on our website. The lease was approved by the board. This was part of our growth and infrastructure committee, keeping them in the loop as to what was going on at Simpsonville. Everyone was on that committee was fully aware. It was shared at the board meetings at different times. It was a commitment we had to make. We had to make this school happen, and it did. It happened. It was a long process, but I hope you can look around and see that the building materials were rock solid. It was built to last, and it was built right. The classrooms are the right size. This space is big enough for the size school it is. I wish we had a full gymnasium. I don't want to make...
That's kind of the next question. So maybe you can tie it in. Final place. Are any plans for growth of Green Simpsonville campus, leasing the remainder of the building, parking lot conversion to green space / field, full-size gymnasium, still in the works or postponed indefinitely?
So this is, there's no answer to that question, except that when we signed the lease, I wanted to make sure that we had the first right of refusal. So if they decide to sell the building, they have to bring it to us first. I know that the people just to the east of us are leaving, and then a year later, the next group is leaving. So if that's a possibility, we would have the first right for that conversation. So there's no promises to that. But I can tell you this, there's 40,000 square feet right over there. And we can't do anything else with the parking lot or anything else because we're tenants. But if we were to buy the parcel and buy the whole building, then we could look at how to deal with that. We still have some significant challenges in the upstate. We have no full-size gym. We have no full-size auditorium. Ironically, Low Country has a gym and Midlands has a gym, but no other school does. We're trying to create a mini gym at the Spartanburg right now, but I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. We also, at some point, they're probably going to approach us. I'll just say it that way, because the property value goes up, but it has to make financial sense. And that would, just so everyone's aware, the process we go through is a letter of intent. It's just a preliminary dialogue, and it's nothing formal. That would go through the Growth and Infrastructure Committee. We talk about it. That would have to be an executive session because we don't want to talk about contract negotiations in open session. So, but nothing about commitment long-term would happen without a formal vote and a formal contract and all that. And I assure you, we will consider how we have to upgrade the HVAC if that was ever a possibility. So I don't know. I love this location. I hope you guys do as well. I think it would be wonderful to raise the roof and put a gym over there or do something with it. It's very rare to have contiguous space like that. So I can't make any promises, but I'm always open to a good idea.
Okay. Why did last year's staff handbook say to contact central office and not the proper authorities if they had suspicions of things they were required to report as mandated reporters?
So each year, every spring, we ask all our leaders to go through the policy manual and give us any suggestions. So every year, we go through policy tweaks, revisions, or new policies. And those are then reviewed at the summer retreat with the board and approved in August. So we do that every year. There was no policy manual except from Fort Lauderdale when I got here, Florida, and we have done a great job of building an iterative process to keep our policies up to date. So that's really all that is. It's important to understand that we have to follow the law. Even if we have a policy, we still have to follow the law. So as far as when you notify or who you notify, we still had to follow mandated training, which is provided each year to all of our staff through an online service called Vector Training. So the training is the training. We made a tweak to our policy manual as we would every year across the network. Every year there's a handful of policies. I know there was Gavin's Law a couple years ago. There's one, what's the other one? What's that other one? There's Gavin's Law, and there's another one that we had to tweak. And there's always things that come through the legislature to tweak the law. So we're always trying to stay current. And that's one of the other advantages. One of the ace in the holes that Green has is Catherine Watt. She's our Director of Communications and Growth. So she helped this building. She's probably the most critical person to make this possible. She was the head of new charters at the district for 7 years. She's a Juris Doc. She writes our annual report. She does our policy manual. She did the 400-page application for this. And because she wrote the practice or the procedure to get a new charter at the district, we were lucky that she came to Green. When I arrived, she was at the charter at the district, and we quickly developed a good working relationship. We tweaked all the charters except Low Country and Spartanburg. Well, we had to tweak Spartanburg. We had to get rid of K4, but we tweaked them all, and she helped us through that process. And through that process, we were able to kind of get her to think about coming to Green. So she's, a real wealth of knowledge at Green, both being in the Juris Doc and having years at the district experience. So she also is a tremendous writer. So that's one of the directors that we saw earlier. And she's been here since the spring of 2022.
We love almost everything about Green, but the uniform company is a nightmare.
Yep.
Okay. Can we move that to someone local who will actually have prompt service and address customer service issues?
I agree with that. It's been hard. We're working on that. We did an RFP a year and a half ago. We got Reeds to do the uniforms, and then we got Living Up to do the spirit wear. Living Up ran into some challenges, and we're going to be retooling that again because it isn't. I actually, and I know Josh, I'm not trying to pull something over on a board member here, but I do think that there might be a reason to contemplate a way to look at uniforms, dress code, things like that. I think that's a thing we should ask ourselves. I'll just say this. When I interviewed all 21 high seniors when I got here a couple times, I asked them what they didn't like. I said, I can't fix anything because you guys are seniors, and they really found it difficult to deal with all the cameras, first of all, but also the strictness around uniforms. There might be some bullying going on, but they'd get walked right by and it would be a dress code violation when there was something else that should have been dealt with. All the seniors told me that, and I'll just say this as having grown children now, and I know some of you are young parents, but you're going to have them when they're older, and freedom of expression is something that kids have to learn going from, say, 8 to 28, and kind of developing a way to define that within our learning community might be a better way to look at that. So I'm not saying what the answer is, but there might be a reason to ask our stakeholders, is uniforms good K-5? Should we think about it different 6-12 or something like that? But I'm not trying to duck the question. I agree, the uniform, we're trying to make Owl Outfitters special and personalized, but there have been significant challenges with that. And I hope that there wasn't any stringency placed on parents around this, because I made sure that, look, no one should get a dress code violation if they didn't get their stuff yet. Nope. So there's been some flexibility around that. I do like having a brand identity, but it shouldn't come 6 months later and cost sometimes a lot of time. So we're working on that, but that might be something we contemplate. And that would be something we'd survey our communities about and really work on. Dress code, there's no right answer on dress code or uniforms. There's no right answer. None of the research says what it matters is, does the community believe in what it's doing? Then it works. It's the same with schedules. There's no right schedule, but if everyone believes in it, then it works.
Let's see. Can you provide a clear deadline for resolving the new 4-month-long outstanding Scholastic Book Fair invoice from this year's fall book fair? Explain how this will impact our ability to hold our already planned spring book fair. Spring book fair will be going on. Maria, is that one of the ones that you and I are working on as far as an invoice is concerned?
The copper person just today said they were all reconciled.
So
Confirmed today that they were, any outstanding pieces that we had on sale were reconciled. Why the delay? I don't know. I don't do that, but I know, or I got confirmation from copper today they were reconciled.
Okay. So spring book fair, here we go. All right. Green Charter has 7 campuses. Why is only the one school psychologist employed, considering the increasing amount of students and the distance between campuses?
Well, Maya would be better to address this, but we added that as an employee position a couple years ago, because we have over 400 special needs students across our network. That's too much for even one school psychologist, right? But we also have such a wide geography to cover. So we have been able to offload some of the contracted services we have to do by having someone internal. There's always a cost benefit. There's a point at which it's better to have your own person, add benefits and travel and all that, than to pay a service. So we have an amalgam of that. We have some contracted services and a full-time school psychologist. That's something that we added a couple years, right? This is our second year, third year? Third. This is the start of our third year. So that's another really difficult person to find, because oftentimes they're better off in a private contract and they make more money and more flexibility. But we're really glad that Susan is with us, and This is something we built since I arrived here. There was inadequate special ed support. There wasn't really an understanding of funding for it. There wasn't enough personnel to support these students. Now we have a 504 coordinator, we have an MLP coordinator, and we have a school psychologist that work at a central office to work and support all the campuses.
Okay. Let's see. The reputation of our school, ... With so many people talking and spreading info that isn't coming from the top, hard to know it is true. We've already dispelled several as far as tonight with just the numbers in the classroom. I can tell you there's never been any conversation from our office about 28 kids in a classroom. The 18 to 1, that was pretty easy explanation as far as the average across the network. But hopefully you've heard a lot, and even from Maria tonight, as far as putting out there some of the stuff that's just being spread that's just not true. But I can understand why sometimes people kind of start saying, okay, what's going on here? But we've helped at least with some of them, and hopefully, Tom, as far as the HVAC conversation, there was more clarity that was put on that, because I think he was very open and honest about that process, and has been as far as the conversations I've been a part of with him. So hopefully, whoever asked that question, yes, sometimes it is so hard to know it's true, and that's the reason why coming together and sending forth a positive message and continuing these conversations to, kind of dispel some of those things that are rumors. Never has there been a conversation about 28 kids in a classroom at any of our schools. And that's just one example. That's just what popped up first. Lack of communication about changes happening in the school causing unhelpful speculation for parents outside the school. Again, I think that's a communication thing. That's the reason why I think nights like tonight, I'm starting to kind of like being able to have these kind of interactions, because we are able to say, okay, where in the world is that coming from? Why would folks think that? Do you want to add anything to that? Let me say this. Sometimes things that happen in a school, if it's a personnel matter, we cannot talk about that. We can't put out, things that could impede or possibly mess up the process for a staff member, maybe even for a student. That's what I was saying earlier. There are protections for all of those that are involved. So there's some things that people demand of us, you're just not going to get. There's an HR responsibility that we have. There's a privacy issue that we have to abide to. And I think I've told some of you before, there's some things I'd love to just tell more about. I'd love to tell more about. But I don't want to mess up the processes in place to be able to help support an individual through a process, no matter what it is, whether it's a discipline issue or whatever. Want to add to it?
Just thank you. Are we done with the questions?
No, there's one more. There's one more.
Why don't you handle that before I wrap it up?
There's one more. I didn't know if you want to add to that. When will the $3,500 in designated book fair profits as well as
we already addressed that.
$3,500? Did we?
Yeah.
Was that part of what?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it then?
Yeah, that was it.
All right. Well, then I'll just.
That was a different question.
Yeah, I think this one looks a little different. Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
Maria may have to help with this one though.
My understanding is you get back your profits when you pay the fee, and we got the thing today that you paid the fee. That's just my understanding of how you get profits from book fair. But
yes.
Patty Barker's phenomenal and has handled all of that and has kept me abreast that it had not been paid, and we always send it to finance to know that it's there and needs to be addressed. I believe that they were in the leads and catching up, and there was a timeline on that. I got the confirmation today. That's all I can go off of.
Okay. All right. Confirmation.
I think there was more there though.
Central processing materials initially made back in November 2025 finally be accessible so that we can update our book collection with our current titles and titles more appropriate for our increased middle school population, and process the boxes of books already paid for and donated by stakeholders. What is the plan of the executive team to fund and maintain an up-to-date library collection relevant to our growing K-8 population moving forward? Maria kind of put it out there a little bit as far as in the weeds. We have worked feverishly on a system that makes sure that we get the approval sent, and I've worked with the principals on that, because sometimes it's one of those things that can be approved and in an email system, it can get lost. Not necessarily all-time principal, all-time me, all-time finance, but we have worked feverishly, I would say, over the last couple of months of really trying to fine-tune, with Copper being in full control now, with their folks on the ground, our folks on the ground, on expediting some of this stuff. Sometimes it takes a little more nudging than other times. But again, I think that's part of the process too. It's not an excuse, and I think I say that in most of the meetings that we're in. It's not an excuse, it's how we have to evaluate and get better at those things. But more and more of those things are happening each day. So glad to know that we're there.
Any questions?
That's it.
All right, well, I want to just reiterate with all of you what Bobby said. Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for sending your most precious children to us. I hope you'll continue to support the great staff here, the great leader here that's doing a great job with this school. I hope you'll continue to reach out if you have further questions. I think that there are things we can talk about and the things we can't, and I just reinforced that with Bobby. There are times when the best thing we can do is stay quiet, follow an appropriate professional process, and then resolve things. It is not always helpful when things stir around a particular kid or a particular staff member that it might be justified, but it's not helpful. I want to thank you for respecting that, and I want to ask you to continue to support what we're doing here at Green. I hope tonight was helpful. As soon as we're done with the hybrid, we can have a more personal conversation as well.
Do you want to say bye?
Thank you all for everyone who joined us on the hybrid. We're going to shut this down and have a conversation together here at Simpsonville. Thank you. You got another water? Does anyone want to take 5, or do you want to?
Could we have like 2?
You gotta go to bed?
I gotta go to the rest.
Take a couple minutes and then we'll go from there.
I didn't know for sure because Butterfingers like fly. I don't know. Nobody else has. We're a little loud. And then she rolls in with that, I'm like, very well researched. As a person who's like, I'm very detail oriented, and she's even more so. I thought she was gonna pop it out of her, it's gonna be on. Just the case. What's up? I'm how you doing? Proud of you for not bursting through the ceiling. Did you see my comment? I just want to tell you about you and Christopher. He was like,
We've had a lot of
and he literally does not like her.
Now I don't know. She's like 28, young she now. To her face at SIC. Where are the cookies?
Right here, you want one? They're Butterfingers, so I'm like saying that loud.
Butterfingers?
Peanut butter, you know? No, anybody else with an allergy, you know?
How can you just lie like that? I don't understand. I
know. What grade are your kids in?
Fourth grade, 20.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Who's the lady sitting right here? Who's the lady sitting right here? The blonde?
That's Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell. Okay. She's the PTA.
No, I didn't know.
Got it. Okay. I've seen her. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Right.
Yeah, we have a green.
You ready to open school? I know a lot.
We'll follow you.
The blue charter belugas. Oh, how fun and cute is you? I love that.
funny. I was like, I'm gonna make a shirt and everything. I started this a while back and I was like, let's change.
Hear anything. We hear rumors, we hear people talk about this and that. Some of that has been addressed today. But what's still missing from my point of view is a comprehensive way or a comprehensive answer to the question, what happened there? You touched on this a little bit, I think, and I think it's becoming clear, but the main question for us as a family is, do we have to get worried about next year? Is the situation under control now? Has this been a one-time issue that the Green organization had to deal with, or is that an ongoing topic that will continue to cause trouble in the future?
I really appreciate that, what you just said. We agree. We had, we missed it in some ways about the communication piece. Some campuses were given communication tools, some campuses it was not so clear how we were explaining that. I know there was a lot of rumors here about the cafeteria staff and other things, because it all happened at the same time. They were related in that, yes, we were going through a budget adjustment, but they weren't the same thing, and I think that's caused a kind of flaming up of the concern. We expect to be here for years to come. We're building it for the long term, but we have to get at this kind of understanding of who we are and how we solve problems, because obviously it's a new school that ramped up very fast and was highly desirable, but there isn't a pattern of understanding that we have established here. So I share your concerns. I think we got to work together on this to keep enrollment and interest high. I know there's still a huge waiting list for next year. So we want to keep the students that are part of our community. We want you to keep your kid here, but it is a shared concern. We could have done a better job in some ways. We tried to communicate here regarding the classes that were lost. But beyond that, some of the other things didn't even understand the concern because it didn't come till later. Because we never cut a cafeteria staff, but that was something that spread. So for that, trying to be responsive to that, we could have done a better job, but that's part of what this is about. And I'll be glad to talk to you also on the side if you wanted to talk further. But I think we've got Green is a nearly $40 million operation. It's a huge enterprise. And we have probably one of the top charter world finance team now at Copper Advisors. We have a fiscal advisor called First Tryon. They work with public entities and charter schools to give good fiscal counsel. And we have Baird as our bond team. So when I think about the quality of our kind of financial structure and team, it's pretty rock solid. And the really cool part is the board recently, well, now it's over a year ago, gave me a 5-year commitment. And that's very important for bondholders. They like to see steady leadership. And I've been here 4.5 years. The model and the approach hasn't changed one bit. I remember when we were at the first green light, there was so much support for what we were going to be doing here. And Vanguard is our primary bondholder. They own probably 70% of our debt. So when we do a presentation, we have to do those twice a year to bondholders. They're really impressed with the progress we've made. And I know last year was hard and that made this year hard, right? Because it impacted it. But when you look at the trajectory of Green, less than 1,800 kids, this massive bond had been signed to go to 21 to 24 to 27 to almost 3,000. There's no need to grow Green anymore. We're going to migrate those rising 8th graders, and there's no big plans to do this again. So it's now about really refining the product, refining the program, and learning from each other. There's a lot of collegiality going on among directors and principals and teachers, really, and instructional coaches to really share ideas across campuses. So there's no guarantees. I just hope we continue to earn your support. So there was, hold on, Karen. You said you had a question. You said want to go first.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Cronin, you have made staff and families feel disposable with frequent mentions of wait list and suggesting we should leave if we don't like the product, aka our school. Our school in this community is not a transaction. What specific actions will you take to show that you value these current staff members and families and that you want us to remain a part of the Green community? Historically, action is often lacking behind your ideas and promises. How can we hold you accountable to what you tell us?
I think the proof is in the pudding. What I've done here is what I've done here. I'll let the record speak for itself.
They're right over
what I
there
have said,
on that board.
what I have approached, how I've approached this has been consistent. The people that have joined us, I've been trying to collect good people for Green since I arrived.
My friends are leaving.
I know. It was not easy though, and it was not done.
Not those friends, the friends that are still here. My teachers are leaving. They're all applying to other charter schools. Families are leaving. Like,
I know. We're going to continue to talk about it and reassure people like we have every year.
I think something new or something different needs to happen. Like, it's not working.
Well,
I want it to work, but
we're doing everything we can to act in confidence so that the future is on good footing. That's what we did from the beginning. I got to tell you, when I got here, the future was, we had to believe it before we could see it because there was no real path that had ever been built like this. We now have a pattern that we're following. When I got here, we couldn't even offer agreements to teachers because we didn't even know what the legislature was going to do. We lost a bunch of teachers that first summer. A lot of them came back the following year.
What do you mean agreements? Because we don't have contracts right now, correct?
You have an agreement you get at the beginning of the year that it gets offered to you before May 1st.
Is it a contract though?
It's an agreement. We're an at-will state. There's a lot of problems that we try to remedy here at Green that are complications in South Carolina. You don't have bargaining units here. But part of what we do is we put out a salary scale so you know exactly where you are. The inequity in compensation that existed when I got here, we're still trying to fix. So what we've tried to do is here's your salary scale. And here's what you should expect to make in the following year. So those typically get posted in February. We're trying to get it done before the end of February right now. So that's what we've always done, and we're trying to give that to people and a comment on how and when we'll restart the retirement, and then move forward with that. The quality of the work environment is still the thing that we have stressed, and I'm not going to try to refute that it impacted everyone when we had to do a reduction of force. It was not an easy decision, it was very hard. There was a lot of things we had to do to ensure that the finance team had confidence in the way we would finish. So the goals have always been the same, to meet those bond covenants and have a high quality program. So that's what we're going to do, that's what we've always done. And we hope to continue to earn your support for that.
I think there was a good question, follow-up question that she was asking about how we're going to compare to Greenville County. I think it's very important to understand the salaries were all over the place. And I know people get tired of hearing us say, well, when we first got here. Tom's goal from the very beginning was to get us almost within at least
95%.
95%, because you can't do this in the charter world. Down in North Charleston right now, they're doing 8,000 to 10,000 sign-on bonuses for teachers in the year. You want to talk about hard to get teachers? It's very hard to get teachers.
Charleston fights this.
Very hard. Even in the Lexington Midlands area, it's the same thing. We've increased each year incrementally, pretty good increases.
We had 2 years ago, we had a 7% increase. Last year we had a 5.5. We're not going to be able to do that this year. But if you were to average it, that's still pretty good. Even with what we do, we'll share next week probably. It's still going to, over time, we're trying to do that cost of living.
Greenville County looks like it's going to be around 50,000 for average teachers.
We're actually over that.
Coming close?
Because here's another thing we do, and I hope you'll chime in on this one. Because
to my knowledge, to date, all of our staff members' steps land above Greenville County. but
So-
moving forward, I don't know, I haven't seen that yet, but it's in.
We just wanna
discussion,
know what's
so-
gonna happen this coming.
Yeah, that will be shared. That will be shared imminently. But here's the thing, and it's just important that it's, when it comes to Green Simpsonville, Maria, most charter schools tell you who you can hire at what step. We always told her to hire the best people, whether they had 1 year experience or 10 years experience.
And
I think our system-wide salary average is much higher than that. I think it's closer to 60. But that's because I don't play games with that. I always want the best teacher. Sometimes it's a first-year teacher, but sometimes they've had it and they're coming to us. And we had that a lot here, and that's why we retained everybody last year, because it was fresh, it was new. And we're going to do what we always did around that. I'm also advocating legislatively, because the reality is money has to follow the kid. That's how charter schools can survive. Let me tell you a reality in Greenville County alone that I'm trying to fight. I can't wait till I get billed for it. If you pay taxes in Greenville County, you have a right to the Golden Strip programming, right? Adult Ed. They want to bill us for our high school kids accessing it. So I can't wait to get the bill. Because you as a taxpayer, just because you chose a different public school, they shouldn't cut you out of something that is a free county service. So I want to challenge that. That's something that we should be on the level playing field with Greenville County. The money should follow the kid around facilities, meaning, there's about $3,000 on the head of every kid through the statewide bond. Facility money should follow the kid too. Imagine if we got 3,000 times 700 here. So we got to advocate for that. We also have got to advocate for the services following the special needs. Not every special needs kid is the same. If we were a placement instead of an LEA, that all changes, and we could supplementally bill to make sure kids could fully access our program if they were capable. And the last piece is transportation. In my previous life, we advocated for charter schools, or we call them magnets, getting funding for transportation. In the South, it would be a home run. Because I'll tell you, I was amazed when I got here that nobody rode the bus. As Chase Wellingham told me, we don't put our babies on buses. I drive by Wade Hampton High School to go home, and I'm like, why is there hundreds of cars outside of a high school? So what I'd like to do is advocate getting $7 to $10 a day for each parent that takes their kid to charter schools. It is a service that we're supposed to. There's nothing in the Charter Act that would restrict us to access the state transportation. So that's what I talked about Friday. We're developing a little one-pager because we've got to make sure that the county schools and charter schools have a comparable and equitable funding source, because that would drive teacher wages up too.
And I'll say this too, in our neighboring, or our county that we live within, you pay those tax dollars. There's a superintendent that is very outspoken of having less money given to charter schools, even though pushing a lot of their kids. Gosh, you may know this. We're in Greenville County. I know Maria knows it. A lot of those students are essentially said you may be better off in a charter school or something to that extent. Meanwhile, they can raise local millage in Charleston County and Greenville County. So not only are they
less kids, more money, less kids.
Yes, not only are they getting what the state, like we get, they're getting some on top of that for facilities costs as well. But that's kind of been the process to get to that point. So to answer you fully, we still have to wait, as far as from our district and what the forecasting is that they're hearing and what Copper's hearing for them as well to really nail down what those costs are.
But I don't disagree that it has been difficult. I don't.
But it's just like,
We're
something
gonna-
needs to change because.
We're gonna give that message in that communication.
I have a question. Yes. So you said just a moment ago that money follows the children. So
no, that's what I'd like to happen. That's what we'd
Okay.
like to happen. We'd like to get the legislature to change the law, because it's very odd. I come from a blue state. I live in a red state now. I don't play the political game at all. I worry about the schools. We changed the law up there. I'd like to change the law here so the money follows the kid. We have a pilot going on in this state to send money to Christian or parochial schools, right? that's probably going to get challenged and fought because it's church and state. What we're able to do up there is say, look, related services, speech, OT, PT, you can go into a Catholic school because that's not about the religion. It's about a service a kid needs. And I think we could make the argument constitutionally that transportation is a function of the education that's public that has nothing to do with religiosity or any of that stuff, right? Same with facilities, brick and mortar. Whatever school you're at, imagine if you had a $2,500, it's a way to look at vouchers in a different way. The money follows a kid. Greenville County's getting $2,500 a kid on a state bond. Well, maybe the facility money should follow the kid. It doesn't pay for any private school, but it puts it on a level playing field. So if Greenville County, if we have 500 of their kids, we should get 500 of their facility fund. You see what I'm saying? And then the money for transportation go right to parents. We created a liability waiver, parents assuming responsibility for transporting their kid, and we send them $7 a day. We got $1,360, I think, for the year.
I love the idea of looking into transportation. What I was kind of focusing more on and curious about was each child has, is weighted, with the system, and we get funding that way, and that's just how it's structured. Yes, I agree. But since it does technically follow the student, though, I mean, to a certain extent, because that's how funding, that's how it works. We would love to know, and I asked, just full transparency, I asked one of the enrollment questions at the very beginning, because I'm just curious how much, like, if we work very hard as a campus, have amazing leadership, and it's not to say that we shouldn't be helping other campuses, because I don't think that at all. I think that's amazing. We should do that. But at the same time, if we are thriving here, and then some of our money that we are getting, some of the funds are going toward other campuses, it would be nice to know what percentage that is. And I haven't seen in any documents at all, like if there's actually a structure, like a financial structure with enrollment.
We have the roll-up audit, which is all the network. You can see that. And I could meet with you to go over that too if you want.
Well, is there a percentage? So there's nothing anywhere, like no documentation that says, okay, if Low Country or Simpsonville, meets their enrollment numbers, whatever they set out to have, then that school, like those funds go back to that school, like it's poured into that school.
Not really.
There used to be.
It's a shared way that happens.
Okay, and I agree. Like I said, I agree with it being shared, but just to know, like, hey, there's a percentage that we know is going to come back to our school. That way, it won't get thwarted. If something chaotic like what happened at Midlands, I heard you say many times about not meeting enrollment, and that's unfortunately why cuts had to be made and things like that, which I understand. But when you say that, it's hard for us here at Simpsonville to, I guess, understand that, because we have been thriving, and now I feel like we're being punished to a certain extent. And I do agree with holding up a failing school a little bit, like if there's a temporary issue, but there's got to be a threshold, something where parents can feel secure and saying, okay, if this goes downhill with another school, we're not going to put all of our eggs in this basket, and that we're still going to be able to maintain the amazing environment and staff that we have here.
Well, let me say, part of my job is to make sure there's equitable distribution of resources. We find some campuses don't have near the facility or materials, or FF&E we call it, as this school. But it is also important that this campus has some reflection on the fact that all the money that went into opening the school, there was no bond on that. It was just part of the rent. Like, there's no, the network provided the funding to get this open. And that's part of the shared responsibility the network did to help this school get open. So it's always gonna kind of balance out over time. And that's part of what we're trying to do, is make sure that's why we have a staffing pattern. That's why we like, when I could, you go over to the elementary school. They don't have what you guys have. They don't have big classrooms and this nice furniture. But when we could, we were able to rehab a couple rooms. They got it. It looks like this. So we try to make sure that there's an equitable distribution of resources and a shared responsibility. And this school benefited from 8 or 9 years of the other schools building up that reserve fund. So yes, this school is thriving right now, but it also took a lot to get here. So there's a balance that happens over time. And just to let everyone know, everything we do is publicly audited. Everything is a full public audit. Every charter gets audited. We pay for an additional audit of the roll-up because our bondholders appreciate that. We didn't need to do that, but we wanted to show to our bondholders how we operate as a network.
How much is that audit? How much do you pay audit?
It's about $7,000 or $8,000
Okay.
an audit. You had a question?
Yeah, it kind of feeds off of hers. So you lost enrollment for the Midlands, which was obvious. And then in September, you get paid for the year prior from the state to the students. So then you raised our enrollment to backtrack for the loss of enrollment. It's pretty obvious. Because if you don't have those amount of numbers at that school that the state paid you for, then you have to pay the state back the money that was given to you that you don't have the amount of students.
No.
So then we were told at this school that we were supposed to be enrolling a grade at a time, but we doubled for, I don't know what reason. I never was told that reason why we doubled when we were supposed to just go up a grade at a time. And now my son that's in 7th grade lost teachers because y'all don't have funding, and saying that, oh, well, this teacher has to be gone now, or we have to be moved to a certain thing, and now he has to go back to his 6th grade teacher for the same curriculum almost in that class, as well as you said there was a question about world language and different languages and stuff like that, which was provided here at the beginning of the year, but the teacher was fired for good reason. And so then that's not provided anymore. My kid was just left in the classroom without a teacher. Just administration was in there, other subs were in there, and he had to finish out the semester for that. You also said that you want low numbers in the school, but we have 23 right now in a classroom, and you said, oh, that was never promised, that it would be 18, but you're saying that we're gonna stay at 22 because you want 88 per grade. So if that's staying, why can't we go ahead and lock that number in with a document saying, okay, well, we will keep it 22?
Because we have to be
to
able
a
to be
class.
flexible. We're not going to cap it we're not going to say that. There's been times where kids have moved, like, again, last year we had an example of a family that moved over here. We weren't going to keep them out, so we added them to a classroom. We all are in this together. Your understanding of how funding happens is not accurate. But do you want to address the language question, or?
When the reduction of force, you did give me the flexibility to do what was going to have the least amount of impact on children that I could foresee, because no reduction of force is ever going to be a positive in a place where adults are with children. I thought for sure the first time that I let someone go would be because it was warranted and we had to do a reduction in force, that I didn't have that experience, and that was really difficult. But the response was to make sure we're serving kids to what we have in our building.
Yeah, I think we lost 1.5 positions here. I think, isn't that right? 1.5.
No. Well, so it isn't. We had a special education teacher that was not certified and was notified ahead of time of the school year that part of the agreement for her employment was that she would obtain certification before the school year started. Unfortunately, she missed the test that provided the certification by a point and was a phenomenal educator. It wasn't going to be able to. Person, be sorry,
careful.
It's wonderful. I'm not
the only reduction
that
in
wasn't a
force
part
was.
of the reduction.
So the substitute that's in the special ed class, is he certified? That he's been there all year? Is Ray going?
That's a paraprofessional. It's not a special education teacher.
But that's what he's handling, is a special.
He doesn't do
education.
any special education minutes. He can't serve as special education minutes. So he's a paraprofessional that has built wonderful, fantastic relationships
Oh, he
with
is
our
an amazing
special
person,
education
and I love him,
population.
so that's not about that.
He's not serving any special ed in a special education teacher capacity.
When you say he can't do minutes, sorry, I'm just,
So
does that mean like
individual
IEP?
education plan, they have service
Okay.
minutes that can only be provided by certified special education personnel. And so when
Paraprofessional can
paraprofessionals
implement it,
interact
but-
with children, sometimes we misperceive that they are serving students, but they're supporting students as paraprofessionals.
Any other? Yep.
We've talked about, I mean, obviously some of the financial strain is showing, right, through the custodial staff, more able substitutes, other things. One thing I haven't heard talked about in any of the channels that I've tried to follow, and maybe I missed it, is the potential additional financial strain on Green from the situation, from the legal situation in Midlands. How, because that's an unaccounted for expense. There's no piece of revenue that can make up for that, and that's something that can drag out for a very long time.
Yeah, it's probably going to drag out for a long time. It is currently with our insurance carrier. We have a large liability insurance. They're the attorneys now dealing with that, and that's covered under our liability insurance. I mean, I don't, again, this is, it's still an ongoing case. It's probably going to go to trial. I don't know how long it'll take. We're hoping that, at least for Dr. Shaw, she'll be exonerated quickly. I can't speak for Benoit. We had no evidence of anything but a complaint, so we removed him right away. And what has come from that, we have never. So I just want you to know it's in the hands of our liability carrier. You had a question?
I would like to know, so I feel like we all have seen a lot of examples of poor decisions being made. The Simpsonville HVAC would be one of them, because I know for a fact that Chase, he said on day one, he told you that the HVAC would have to be replaced. So I think that's something that kind of just got glossed over when you were talking about it, but the fact that you signed a lease on a building without having someone walk through that knows what they're looking at and can say, you know what, those units on top of the building are not going to suffice for a school. They're just for small office spaces. I think that was a huge poor decision. I think another poor decision was when the reduction in force had to happen, you didn't communicate to anybody initially, and parents freaked out, teachers freaked out, and still nothing was said. And even worse, things were portrayed like nothing was wrong, and that led to parents asking more questions. And that somehow is damaging Green. It didn't start with the parents asking questions, the damage. The damage started with your decision to not be a strong leader and stand up and say, look, this is what's happening. I made a bad decision here, or, nobody knew what was happening, which I feel like we all should have seen it coming somehow, yet nobody really knew. I feel like you should have seen it coming as well. You knew the ESSER funds were ending. You knew the bond payment was coming up. You found out about the HVAC after the fact, yet we're all having to pay for it. So there are lots of examples of poor decision making.
However, the thing that concerns me going forward is that while all that's happening, nothing is happening as far as instructional development, as far as fundraising.
Curriculum night.
Jeff?
Just want to, you're providing a lot of information, and I'm just asking the question.
Why are we, what I want to know, or the thing that makes it difficult for me to, would make it difficult for me to come back to the school or to tell someone else to come to this school, is that I love the school that was described in the original charter. However, you don't talk about anything that has to do with our mission statement. The only time I ever hear you speak about sustainability, about STEM, about any of that is when you're repeating the mission statement. Nothing else seems to happen. We're a data-based school, yet it's in our charter. Don't act like you don't know. It's in our charter. We were intended to be a science and data-based school.
So is one of the questions you're asking is why we're not following the charter?
Why not?
Okay.
Because there's other people with hands up, yes, I'm just want to get the question.
So I can address the HVAC. We've already addressed that.
Yes, we know you made a mistake.
Okay.
Just let him answer your question.
Sorry, Chad.
So there's none of these decisions that don't go through board approval, collaboration with attorneys, upfit drawings from engineers. There was a challenge with fresh air intake, and that's Office of School Facilities, and that's not something we can always know right away. We had an HVAC system that everyone assumed it would be sufficient. I challenged our attorney, how did you miss it? Meaning the language. The realtor says there's no way. So there's none of these decisions that I do without getting a lot of input. Thankfully, when Chase returned to Green, we were starting this build out, and he has a great relationship with OSF and was able to kind of work that. And within a month or so, we were like, oh no, this is like a couple of huge units that had to be replaced. We had supply chain issues, we had structural and electrical issues that had to be, because this building had a series of individual units because it was broken out, and we needed a more robust. We put a train system on, and Creative Builders assumed some of the cost of that because we assumed they would know that, but it was difficult. I'm not saying that we weren't lessons learned. One of the lessons learned is, if we're going to take over a school or grow some more, let's find a school that's already existing, that's already approved. There might be buildings like that. So, but we didn't have that problem when we opened the high school. And I just want to reiterate, at $94 a square foot, the high school was done 2 years earlier, about the same price, and we got $60 of that paid for by the landlord. That's still a remarkable build out. There is lessons learned. There were difficulties with it, but none of these steps were taken without attorneys being involved, upfit drawings. I wasn't going to spend $300,000 or $400,000 before we even had a lease. So those are the complications of a nonprofit. So, and as far as programmatically, we have a great team, and Kelsey Pennington's working closely with the leaders. We're trying to create a narrow variance around our best
But you're
project.
not. You haven't been doing that.
Kaylin, I've answered your question. I'm answering your question.
What's the question about the charter? Kristen, I feel like you said it well.
Yeah, she was specifically, I feel like one of the things she was trying to get at is she felt like things were put forth in the charter that were not actually being followed.
Well, I'll let Maria answer what's going on here instructionally, because instructional program here is high quality. We have great teachers, we have a great program, we have integration of Project Lead the Way. That's what we're doing. It's a first year in opening, we get an excellent rating. We're doing good stuff here.
But we have 30 minutes of STEM once a week.
It's not true.
45 minutes of STEM in seclusion, and STEM is integrated into their instruction across the board. Every one of our teachers has Project Lead the Way training that is to integrate.
Yes, and I asked teachers if they use it, and they say every once in a while, or they say I don't have the space or the time to use it.
Okay, that might not be an actual following the
That's
charter.
probably being outside of the parameters of the Q&A, so.
You can follow up directly with Maria on that.
All right, so it's going on 8:40. I know you've got your hand up. If we've got some last minute questions to ask, please make sure we get them in.
Let's ask the people who haven't asked a question yet. I see you.
Is there anybody that has not asked a question yet?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I
put your
just,
hand.
I wanted to try and just get a little bit more clarity. So I'm first year with my 2 kids in 1st and 4th grade. And I want some clarity on how the board is structured. You know, is it a House of Reps? Is it based on the size of your schools, the number of board members that are there? And then also the transparency on the board meetings themselves. I was very surprised when I joined that I started getting these emails that said, hey, there's a board meeting on Thursday, 2 days before, with a link, and evenings are not an easy time, but I often can catch up later. But found no meeting minutes, no recordings posted anywhere on the website. And when I look at like the South Carolina, our district that we're in, the charter school district, I mean, I can go back 5-6 years and still get links to all
We have,
of those.
if you go under board, you'll see docs, you'll see the financials, you'll see the effective January 1st, the videos have to be put up for meetings. We do a meeting every second Thursday of the month. Even our committee meetings now are videotaped when they're not in executive session. There are 5 or 6 topics we can't talk in open public: contract negotiations, personnel, safety, a few others that have to stay in executive session. So sometimes there'll be 2 links for a committee.
Okay.
But
and then what about the distribution of how many board members are there from each campus?
According to our bylaws, there's an elected board member for each campus, and then there's some, and then there's some flexibility that the board can do around appointed positions. But
Okay.
that's really a board prerogative, and I know the board will be looking at that going forward to, the bylaws are somewhat non-directive as to how the appointments happen, so the board is going to be contemplating that, but we have right now 7 board members from 7 campuses.
Okay, and then
that's a statewide
as those
board.
change, like where do you see communication on that?
Well, those, every other year, there's half the board goes through an election. That's another contemplation the board will do if they want to extend the term. It is hard sometimes having half the board being considered every year. That's a hard thing to create continuity, and we need continuity. So initially that was okay because a lot of the board members were kind of got reelected and there was some continuity. But the board will contemplate that. That's their prerogative. We have a board's attorney who supports the board and ensures that they follow the bylaws. But you're welcome to look at the bylaws. They're on our website too. And that's that visual I gave you that really shows how the bylaws
I
function.
just wasn't sure how big that circle was.
Yeah, it's 1 for each campus. And then
Thank you.
There was someone over here had a question.
Yeah, I have 2. Apologize because you kind of already addressed these, but they're a little bit more specific. One, are you going to be able to bring back the benefits that were cut in November for our teachers and staff, specifically like the retirement benefits?
Yes, we are. We're going to set a restart date on that and a % reimbursement. I don't think we're going to get up to the 7%, but that will come out next week.
Is the 7% what they had back in November?
That's what they had, a matching. That's very robust in any industry, but what we're not gonna do is not gonna promise something and then pull it back. We're gonna, if we go out a little smaller, we can add to it later. But we wanna reinstate that.
And my second one, and I apologize, it does have to do with the HVAC unit, but this is just more for my clarity. When I sign a lease to rent a house, the landlord is responsible for all utilities like that. Why was the leaseholder not responsible for the utilities on this building?
Because when the lawyers worked all this out, it's a change of use, and a landlord is not gonna, like, if it's a commercial building and they're gonna put all this electrical stuff in and they need to upgrade, there's parameters a commercial lessee is not, or leaseor, right? Lessor, that's gonna do, so when we had to do a change of use with all that fresh air intake, they said that's not our responsibility. So the lawyers fought it over and they were like, yes, it is, Green's gonna have to figure out how to do that. And it was a team effort, it really was. There were Creative Builders, who was our contractor for this, worked with us to assume some of that. They made sure it was a train, which is a really high quality product. So that was the difficulty of it. I agree with you. When I rent something, I expect the landlord to take care of stuff. But it's considered a change of use, and they said that we're not going to pay for that.
Would you say that the lawyers maybe didn't do their due diligence?
I brought that up. You know, the question here is, did the lawyers do their due diligence? And we fought over this pretty hard. I'm like, why didn't anyone see this? And they're like, well, it wouldn't. So between the commercial real estate agent, lawyers on both sides, are like, it's not something that we would have anticipated. We did do an upfit with our architects. DP3 did it. They're a reputable company in town. But we weren't going to spend the MEP drawings, which are hundreds of thousands of dollars for a building this big. So we figured out a way to make it happen. All right, last question? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not so much a question, but kind of a statement. But I just wanted to go back to the janitorial of having a full-time person here. I think there's been enough said tonight that maybe this is something you really
yes,
look into.
I appreciate that. That's something we can look at. You know, what I didn't say earlier, so I'm glad you brought this up, is, you know, when you have a few days to get services in, they're like, well, we could put in halftime at every school. So they were able to kind of get us rolling again, and then it was about like, all right, let's work with them, but it may be needed. You know, we have, again, some of this is historical. A couple of campuses have a day porter that also runs the bus, and there's some other places that they've been on staff. So with this being a new place, I think we got to look at whether that's really meeting the need. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
I had a question. You know, I know one of the biggest things with everything is the communication aspect of the school. And I know that there was a possibility of a communication app for parents and teachers that was coming down the pipeline, just a universal app for all of Green. And is that funding allocated? Are we getting that?
Well, I don't know if that's getting back to Apogee. So obviously we want to solve the problem closest to the problem, meaning talk to your teacher, then talk to your school leader, then check in with Mr. Rollins, and he'll get it to the right person. So from a responding to concerns or communication, that has to happen. We did explore a platform that would look like Green and be Green's. We were very close to moving toward Apogee, which is a tool. But the problem with Apogee, it didn't have geofencing. And we didn't want to migrate everything without having Pick My Kid, which is a very useful tool. And so we talked to Apogee last year about Bobby, when was that? Like last March, probably a year ago now, right? Yeah. No, it wasn't a year ago, was it?
No, it was actually coming into the school year to do
it was probably this time last year, probably the spring.
Yeah.
But we were trying to look at Apogee because it could bring My School Bucks and Power School and all that under one app and help us with the website. So, but without geofencing, there was going to be, you know, $5 or $10 grand per campus already, and then adding that. So we talked to them about finding a way to put a geofencing tool. So we're still looking at that. We also did an audit on the website, and we're working on improving that because some of the website is antiquated and isn't up to date. So.
And I will say, what about a curriculum night? I know last year we kind of had a pseudo curriculum night, it was / fall festival curriculum night. Obviously Greenville County always has one at the first of the year. Do you look at?
I leave that to some of the schools, I love what happens at the elementary school. They do Peace Day and they do those kind of things. They do the Entrepreneur Day and all that. So it's just really about this school developing some of those traditions and cultural things. It's nothing, I would never stand in the way of any good idea. especially if we have volunteers and support from the staff, let's do it. All right, I want to thank everyone for coming out. I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your commitment to our school. Please continue to reach out if you have questions. I know Maria bleeds into this school and loves this school, so in the end, thank you for being here tonight, and reach out if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Oh, wait, there was a question.
He's skipping over it because I already asked.
Oh.
He interrupted me after I was asking my question.
I'll meet with you after if you'd like.